Going to move straight on to business news now on the programme. Catherine Bennett is joining me in the studio for that today. Now, this week, of course, marks the start of the World Economic Forum 2020 in Davos, Switzerland. Catherine, what can we expect as that gets underway?
Well, for its 50th edition, Davos is going green. The climate crisis is high on the agenda, and this year's climate activist Greta Thunberg is back to put pressure on business leaders and heads of state to take immediate action to tackle global warming. US President Donald Trump will also be making an appearance after missing the 2019 edition. He's clashed with Thunberg in the past and will likely be challenged on his rollback of environmental policies and pulling the US, of course, out of the Paris Climate Agreement. Fraser Jackson has more on the new sustainable Davos.
Demanding climate action, thousands gathered on the streets of the Swiss town of Lausanne on Friday. Star of the protest, climate activist Greta Thunberg.
You have not seen the last of us, we can assure you that. And that is the message that we will bring to the World Economic Forum in Davos next week.
On the other side of Switzerland, the picturesque mountain resort of Davos. Like every year, the world's political and business elite are descending upon the snow-covered village, but this year, and for its 50th edition, the World Economic Forum is going green.
The meeting will serve to make green investment mainstream and ultimately imperative. It will encourage the engagement of our partners and members to become carbon neutral. And finally, in addition to the commitment to reduce carbon emissions, the restoration of our ecosystems is a priority for this coming decade.
The move comes after the publication of the Forum's annual risk report. For the first time, environmental issues have topped the list of concerns for the business elite and world leaders. Set against the backdrop of the Australian bushfires, extreme weather, biodiversity loss and events like oil spills and radiation contamination were chief worries mentioned. Hoping to push those in power into action, Davos has adopted sustainability as its main theme. The forum is set to launch an initiative this week that aims to plant 1 trillion trees by the end of the decade.
One head of state who won't be trekking up the Alpine slopes in his shoe grips is French President Emmanuel Macron. He's staying home to launch French business summit Choose France, welcoming more than 200 business leaders to the forum today in Versailles. Netflix, YouTube, BMW, Coca-Cola and Rolls-Royce are just some of the illustrious names attending. France has already announced nearly €4 billion worth of investments coming into the country over the next few years. The world's billionaires have doubled in the past decade and are richer than 60% of the global population. Those are the stark figures from Oxfam's annual Global Inequality report released today. The report traditionally comes out just before the start of the World Economic Forum, which is often criticised for being elitist. This year's statistics also highlighted the gender imbalance in wealth inequality. The report says that the 22 richest men in the world have more wealth than all of the women in Africa combined. Let's take a look at the markets now. Over in Asia, indices are edging higher, with Tokyo's Nikkei moving up 0.5% and Shanghai's Composite up 0.5%. Seoul's Kospi also rose 0.5% after Samsung announced the new head of its smartphone operations today in an attempt to turn around the company's dwindling fortunes. The Hang Seng Index, however, is the only one that's falling down at 0.67%. UK businesses, meanwhile, have sounded the alarm after the British Chancellor Sajid Javid said that Britain would diverge from EU rules after Brexit. In an interview with the Financial Times on Friday, Javid ruled out alignment with EU regulations, saying there will not be alignment, we will not be a rule taker, we will not be in the single market, and we will not be in the customs union, and we will do this by the end of the year. He showed no sympathy for UK companies, saying that they had already had 3 years to get ready for a new trading relationship. A message that startled Brussels, with EU diplomats warning that it would lead to economic damage. UK businesses also responded to his remarks, warning that food prices would rise and jobs could be affected. And that wraps up the business from me today.
Thank you very much, Catherine Bennett on France 24. And don't forget, as we mentioned, of course, or she was talking about there, of course, Davos. And Stephen Carroll, our business editor, the reason he's not here in the studio is because he's in Davos, on his way to Davos anyway. We'll be hearing from him, of course, during the week here on France 24. So do stay with us for that if you can.